They went to Iceland without me. My cousin posted, "Best family trip ever. Grateful for the one who made it happen." That one was me. $9,800 in charges. Then my aunt sent me a text meant for her sister. "He's too desperate to say anything." So I did. I canceled everything. At 5:07 a.m. Iceland time, my phone buzzed. 22 missed calls and one message from my dad. "How could you do this?" It started with a Facebook post. My cousin Becca, the kind of person who thinks hashtags are a personality, posted a picture of herself in a blue parka, standing on a glacier, throwing up a peace sign with one hand and holding a cup of overpriced Reykjavik coffee in the other. The caption hit harder than it should have. "Best family trip ever. Grateful for the one who made it happen." No tag, no mention, just that sentence. As if I were supposed to be flattered from afar, as if the money just fell from the sky and paid for their cozy Airbnb and those geothermal spa selfies. That one she was talking about? Yeah, that was me. $9,800. That's how much had been quietly drained from my account over 2 weeks, spread out in random transactions. First, it was $740 to Iceland Air. Then $1,320 to some Reykjavik guest house. Another $500 here, $2,100 there. I noticed the pattern a few days before they left. And when I confronted my Aunt Marlene, she acted completely bewildered. Claimed she had no idea how my card had been used. And the worst part? I believed her. I didn't push. I've always had this weakness, I guess, when it comes to family. I don't like confrontation. They know that. I was still trying to figure out what to do when they left. My parents, my 2 aunts, Uncle Joe, Becca, her younger sister Kelsey, and even my little brother, Jake. 9 people. 9 people on a family trip I hadn't even been invited to. I wasn't even told they were going. I found out when my boss forwarded me a vacation request that I hadn't submitted. I work in payroll, I know how to track a charge. They were just stupid enough to think I wouldn't. But the thing that flipped the switch wasn't the post. It was a text. Late that night, while I was still staring at my bank app, I got a message from Aunt Marlene. I assume it was meant for her sister, my other aunt. It said, "He's too desperate to say anything." That was it. No context, no apology, just that, like I was some kind of pathetic little wallet with a face. And maybe I had been, until that moment. So, I did the one thing they clearly didn't expect. I called my bank. I reported every transaction I hadn't authorized. I filed a fraud report. I asked them to cancel and block anything that hadn't gone through yet. I even had my bank reach out to Iceland Air and the guest house. Then I went a step further. I emailed the car rental company, the tour operators, even the Blue Lagoon Spa. Anything with my name on it got cancelled. By 5:07 a.m. Iceland time, my phone buzzed violently on my nightstand. I was already awake. 22 missed calls. My dad called 7 times, Aunt Marlene 5, Becca 4, my mom twice. The rest were a mess, some unknown Iceland numbers, one of which I later realized was the guest house trying to confirm whether the cancellation was legit. And then came the message from my dad, "How could you do this?" Not, "What happened?" Not, "Can we talk?" Not even a lie. Just that. All caps. Like I had somehow ruined their vacation. I didn't reply. Instead, I turned off my phone, made myself some toast, and waited, because I knew this wasn't over. Not even close. By the time I turned my phone back on that night, the trip was already falling apart. I'd expected chaos, maybe some panicked calls, maybe even a guilt trip from my mom about how we could have handled this differently. But I hadn't expected complete collapse. The moment the bank processed the cancellation on the guest house booking, they were kicked out. It wasn't a hotel. There was no front desk, no polite conversation, just a lock code that suddenly stopped working at 4 p.m. local time. They'd gone out for the day to see some black sand beach or whatever. And when they came back, the door wouldn't open. I hadn't canceled the flights. That was the one thing they actually paid for themselves. Everything else had my name on it. The SUV rental? Gone. Tours? Cancelled. Blue Lagoon? They showed up in swimsuits and got turned away at the gate. No one could figure out what was happening until Aunt Marlene got the official bank email on my behalf. She didn't even bother denying it. She just forwarded it to the family group chat and said, "Well, I guess he finally grew a spine." I wasn't in the group chat. My brother forwarded the screenshot to me on the side. No comment, just sent it and left it at that. They booked emergency flights back to the States. Only Becca and Kelsey stayed one more night because they had some influencer crap to finish. Apparently, they got offered a free meal in exchange for a post. Everyone else came home early. All that planning, all that scheming, and it ended with them at the Reykjavik airport, cold, pissed off, and several thousand poorer. The confrontation. And then they showed up at my house. I live alone in a duplex in Portland. It's not huge, but it's mine. Bought it after years of saving and pretending like I didn't hear the family jokes about me being the boring one. They pulled up 2 days after they landed, my parents, my aunts, Uncle Joe, Jake, and even Becca, who I guess couldn't resist the drama. I opened the door because they were already pounding hard enough to shake the frame. It started civil, or fake civil. You could smell the tension. My mom tried the guilt route first, asking why I didn't come to them before canceling everything. Like I hadn't already asked about the charges before the trip. Then Aunt Marlene took over, said I had ruined a once-in-a-lifetime experience for the whole family and humiliated them. Uncle Joe accused me of making them look like criminals. My dad just stood in the back, arms crossed, like he was waiting for me to apologize. For 6 hours, they stayed. 6. I didn't offer food. I didn't offer water. I just sat and let them go on and on. At one point, Becca tried to guilt me by showing me photos of what could have been. My brother said almost nothing, just sat there quietly. And then Aunt Marlene finally said it, "We think you should reimburse us for what you ruined." That's when something in me just snapped a little. I asked her if she wanted the full list of what they took from me, or just the dollar amount. She didn't like that. They didn't leave on their own. I told them I was going to call the police. That finally got them moving. But I knew they weren't done, because as my dad walked out the door, he turned around and said, "You think you're punishing us, but this is only going to make things worse for you." I didn't reply, but I locked the door behind them, every bolt, every latch, and waited again, because I knew exactly what they were capable of. I thought after 6 hours of them pacing around my living room, scolding me like a child, blaming me for their fraud and their failure of a trip, they'd have at least the decency to feel some shame. Stay away. Go home. Think it over. They didn't. I didn't hear from any of them for a few days. No calls, no messages. I blocked almost everyone except Jake. He never said much, even when they all showed up at my house, but he didn't defend me either. Still, something about him felt different. Like maybe he understood but didn't know what to do with it. 3 days later, he texted me. Just one line, "They're planning to come back." No follow-up, no warning when. And then that Saturday, they did. It was around 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I saw the car before I even heard the knock. Uncle Joe's ugly white SUV parked at the corner, halfway blocking a fire hydrant and leaking oil into my neighbor's driveway. My mom, Dad, Aunt Marlene, Uncle Joe. And this time, instead of Becca, Kelsey was with them, standing there on my porch in denim shorts and a hoodie like she was being forced to attend a church service. They rang the bell, knocked once, then twice, then harder. I could hear my dad saying my name through the door like we were buddies, like this was some normal drop-in. I didn't move for a full minute, just stood behind the door, watching them through the peephole. When I finally opened it, I kept the latch on, just enough to make eye contact. My mom spoke first, asked if we could just talk. I told her no, told them all I'd said everything I needed to the first time they came. She gave me this look, half pleading, half pissed, and said they weren't leaving until we worked this out. Like this was some mutual disagreement and not them stealing almost 10 grand and vacationing off it. I said they had 10 seconds to get off my property. That's when she wedged her foot in the door. I don't know if it was instinct or rage or what, but I shoved the door harder than I meant to. She stumbled back, caught herself on the railing, and just stared at me like I'd slapped her. Uncle Joe stepped forward like he was going to say something tough, but I already had my phone up, camera pointed, ready to dial. I told them I had the whole first visit recorded. I told them they were trespassing. I told them this would be the last time they'd ever see my front step without a court order. They left, but not like the first time. Not quiet, not sulking. They left angry, furious. I could feel it in how my dad lingered at the bottom of the porch, just standing there saying nothing, trying to make me flinch. In how Aunt Marlene kept shaking her head, mumbling to herself, walking to the car like she was counting steps not to turn around and start again. Kelsey slammed the door so hard it echoed. Not one of them looked back. Escalation and retribution. That night I left all the lights on, just a feeling. I didn't sleep. The next morning, my car told me everything I needed to know. Driver's side mirror shattered, hanging by a wire. Deep, narrow dent right above the front wheel. Something heavy and sharp. Not random vandalism. This was a message. I walked around the block hoping someone had seen something. No luck. No doorbell cam pointed in the right direction. But mine caught it. They came back at 2:40 in the morning. The same white SUV parked across the street. No masks, no attempt to hide. Just walked right up, did the damage in less than 2 minutes, and left. You could even see Uncle Joe on the footage, holding something that looked like a metal pipe. I didn't call them. I didn't text. I didn't threaten. I just saved the footage, backed it up in 3 places, and started planning something else, because if they thought that was the end of it, they were about to learn what it felt like when someone fights back. For real. The next morning, I drove straight to the police station. I brought the footage. Timestamp clear as day. Uncle Joe in his ratty hoodie holding what looked like a tire iron. Kelsey hanging back, laughing. My mom standing by the SUV like a lookout. No masks. No shame, just full confidence that I'd never do anything about it. The officer at the desk didn't say much, but once he watched the footage, he gave me a look I'll never forget. He asked me one question, "Do you want to press charges?" I said yes, immediately, without blinking. It wasn't about the mirror or the dent. It wasn't even about the 10 grand. It was the way they kept showing up, like they still had some control over me. Like I owed them something. Like I didn't have the right to be furious about it. They didn't arrest them that day. It doesn't work that fast. But something unexpected happened just 2 days later. I don't know how the footage got out. I only gave it to the officer and I had it backed up on a USB at home, but someone leaked it. It showed up on a local subreddit titled "Family from Hell Destroys Son's Car After Iceland Fraud." There were hundreds of comments before noon. I hadn't even posted it. Someone must have gotten it through someone else at the precinct. Or maybe Jake saw it and sent it out. I never figured it out for sure, but now it was public. By evening, people were tagging Becca and Kelsey on Instagram. Someone dug up Aunt Marlene's Facebook and started dropping the clip in the comments on her pictures from Iceland. Even Uncle Joe's business page, he runs a home renovation company, got blasted with bad reviews. Dozens of them. Suddenly, they weren't just mad. They were humiliated. They came back again. But this time, they didn't knock. I heard the car door slam. And by the time I looked out the window, they were already shouting from the yard. Not just yelling, screaming. My mom yelled that I'd ruined her life. Aunt Marlene was crying, like actual tears, screaming that I'd made them internet monsters. My dad threatened to sue me. Uncle Joe tried to say I doctored the footage. I didn't even open the door. I stood there behind the locked screen and dialed 911. Loud enough for them to hear it ring. Loud enough to make them freeze just long enough for the dispatcher to pick up. They scattered before the cops arrived. That night, Jake came by unannounced, like the rest of them, but different. He looked rough, pale, nervous. Said he'd been staying at a friend's place. Didn't want to be around them anymore. I didn't say anything. I just let him in. Then he told me something I hadn't expected. They'd taken more than just money. Apparently, before the trip, Aunt Marlene had used my saved info, credit card, login to access my travel points. All of them. Nearly 190,000 miles. I'd been saving those for years. Gone. Used to upgrade their seats, book better tours. A couple of those luxury experiences they bragged about in posts? Those were bought with my points. It wasn't just money. They'd gone into my accounts. Jake gave me screenshots. I didn't ask how he got them, and he didn't explain. He just handed me a USB with everything. That's when I realized this wasn't just petty. It was calculated. And now I had proof. It wasn't just revenge anymore. It was going to be war. By the next morning, it had blown up beyond anything I expected. The subreddit post was now viral. A few mid-tier YouTubers had picked it up and started stitching together clips, linking them with the leaked footage, screenshots from Becca's vacation posts, and some old Yelp reviews that accused Uncle Joe of sketchy contracting practices. I didn't do any of it. I didn't feed the fire, but I didn't stop it either. My phone was flooded. News blogs, random emails from people offering help. Even an invite from some podcast that covers family scams. I ignored all of it. Meanwhile, Jake was still on my couch. He was quiet, barely touched his food. But every now and then, he'd ask me something like, "Do you think they'll actually go to jail? Or are you really pressing charges?" I think he wanted me to say no. I didn't. I told him I had already hired a lawyer. He didn't ask who paid for it. The trap and the final blow. A week passed. That's when they tried the most desperate thing yet. I got a call from a block number. I normally don't answer those, but curiosity got the better of me. It was my mom. Her voice was calm, almost too calm. She said they wanted to make peace, that the whole thing had spiraled and they just wanted to talk. Said they were open to solutions. It felt rehearsed, like someone else had written the script. I told her I'd think about it. That night, Jake asked me if I'd ever considered wearing a wire. I laughed at first. Thought he was joking, but he wasn't. He said he'd overheard something. Aunt Marlene and my dad had been talking in the backyard while they thought no one was listening. Jake was on the porch above them. They weren't planning peace. They were planning a trap. They wanted to meet up, convince me to settle, and get me to admit I canceled everything out of spite, that the charges were authorized. If they could get me saying that, even just once, they'd try to flip the legal side. They weren't done screwing me. They were just changing tactics. So, I set a trap of my own. I agreed to meet at a local coffee shop. Public cameras everywhere. I even got the okay from my lawyer to record. Jake came too, sat at a separate table with his phone angled at ours. It was just me and Marlene and my dad. They came in with this fake energy, all smiles, ordered drinks, asked about work. I didn't play along. I just sat there and let them talk. They offered me a deal, drop everything. No more police reports, no lawsuits. In return, they'd reimburse me $3,000, $3 out of the $9,800 stolen and the 190,000 points burned. They claimed that was all they could manage because of the flight rebooking and emotional stress. Then Aunt Marlene said the magic words, "We all know you canceled everything just to punish us. You didn't really think it was fraud, right?" Right into the mic. I didn't respond. I just sipped my drink, gave them time, and left. Jake followed me out. We didn't say anything until we got in the car. I sent the audio to my lawyer the second we got home. We had everything we needed. That night, someone egged my windows, but I didn't care, because they had no idea what was coming next. Consequences. 2 weeks after that recording, I got the call. The police were moving forward. Criminal charges for unauthorized use of my financial information and willful property damage. They were especially interested in the audio and video showing their intent to manipulate the case. My dad and Aunt Marlene straight up admitting the fraud and trying to bait me into a false confession. The detective said it would likely start with Uncle Joe. He was already on thin ice with his business practices. And now they had footage of him vandalizing my car with a pipe. 1 charge for property damage, 1 for trespassing, 1 for conspiracy. It was happening. And then one more twist. The IRS got involved. Apparently, a few internet sleuths had forwarded the Reddit thread to a tip line. Not sure who did it. Maybe someone with too much time. Maybe someone who hated Becca's influencer posts. Either way, it turned out Uncle Joe hadn't reported a lot of income from his side jobs. Some of the payments went through my cousin's Venmo account, Kelsey's, too. And Aunt Marlene had apparently been funneling money through a fake charity name to get discounts on bulk travel rates. The vacation wasn't just stolen. It was part of a pattern. Fraud, tax evasion, misuse of funds. I got a visit from a federal investigator. Not dramatic like in movies. No trench coats. Just a woman in a gray suit asking if I'd be willing to hand over the screenshots, the voice recordings, and the USB Jake had given me. I did. They asked to speak to Jake, too. I left that up to him. By the time the subpoenas were served, my family had completely imploded. Becca deleted her Instagram account. Uncle Joe shut down his business temporarily. Aunt Marlene's Facebook was a ghost town. My mom and dad? I don't know. They haven't tried to contact me again. But the best part came from Jake. He got his own place. He used some savings, some help from friends, and said he needed distance. Told me quietly that he was proud of me, that I was the first person in the family who didn't just take it. I gave him the second spare key to my place just in case. As for me, I ended up getting back most of the $9,800. Between the fraud claim, the civil lawsuit we filed, which they didn't even bother contesting after the criminal investigation began, and the travel points being reinstated thanks to the evidence I had, I came out ahead. I didn't just cancel a vacation. I burned down the whole system they thought they could keep using forever. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't the one apologizing at the family table. I wasn't even at the table, because I built my own and locked the damn door. The encore. 5 months passed and things had finally quieted down. The lawsuits were moving forward. My stolen money was mostly recovered, and everyone from that side of the family had vanished into radio silence. Jake had his own apartment now. We talked often, and I finally felt like I could breathe again. Then, out of nowhere, a wedding invitation arrived in my mailbox. No return address, heavy envelope, fancy calligraphy. Becca was getting married in Iceland again. Inside the invite was a smaller card that stopped me cold. This celebration is made possible by the generosity of our beloved cousin, Alex. I blinked. Read it twice. They didn't just list me as a guest. They credited me as the one funding the wedding. I never gave them $1. I never even spoke to them after they tried to trash my car. To make it worse, the RSVP was already filled out. Checked. Yes. Airline voucher enclosed. Like they'd written me into the script of their perfect comeback story. Jake got the same invite, minus the weird sponsor message. He told me they were spinning it like we made up. Like the whole disaster was just a family misunderstanding. According to Aunt Marlene, this was their way of restoring peace. Instead, Jake came up with something better. He said he'd go, but not to celebrate. He bought a mic and a tiny GoPro. He's planning to sit through the ceremony, wait for Becca's inevitable thank you to Alex speech, and then stand up and tell the truth about the fraud, the fake RSVP, the damage, the lawsuit, everything. He won't yell. He'll just speak. Calm, clear, undeniable. And he'll record it all. So, when it's done, we'll post it. No drama, just facts, proof, the truth. They thought this wedding would bury everything, but instead, it's going to be the final nail.